had to go down that dark hole. Okay, we are live. This is Senate Finance. This is March 12th, my daughter's birthday. And we are going to continue our discussion. We have another H bill, but this one we've had for a while. And if we've got extra time, we could try and get it out of here. That's 659, which is the captive insurance bill on to which we are attaching the DFR housekeeping bill. These are both, as far as I can understand it, real housekeeping bills. And if we can get them out of here, it would be helpful, I think, to all the DFR people that have to regulate it. So I thought we would take a look. And first, I've got Maria. Maria is up there. Okay. Okay, Maria. The floor is yours. I just want the committee to take in testimony, but it's been 4 or 5 weeks. It came over very early from the house. And I just want to do a refresher course so the committee knows what they're voting on.
Okay.
So, floor is yours.
Makes sense. Maria Royal with Legislative Council. So yeah, just a refresher on H 659. It passed the House with plus the captive insurance pieces that DFR proposed. You then you reviewed those provisions with the department, and then made a decision to do an amendment, which basically left in all of the House captives insurance language and added on a number of other provisions that the department was looking to pass this year. And those subjects included, in addition to some really minor kind of technical housekeeping fixes, there were 3 kind of main provisions, main subjects that were all based on model laws.
Okay.
Right? So there was the NAIC, that's the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, the NAIC model law on holding company systems.
Okay.
Right. And then there's also another NAIC model law concerning pet insurance.
One we have to pass for accreditation and one we do not, right?
Correct.
That's our
Yeah, pet insurance right now typically is, regulated under the general property and casualty insurance statutes. This would be a new chapter specific to pet insurance and what's covered, what's required to be disclosed, and so on, pre-existing conditions and so on. So not for purposes of accreditation, but a little greater specificity with respect to the regulatory framework. And then the other subject was a model act on money transmission modernization. So this is was a proposal or a model prepared by the Conference of State Bank Supervisors. And so it updates and amends all of the laws under Title VIII that concern money transmitters.
Okay, this came from the Bankers Association, right?
Conference of State Bank Supervisors, which is similar to NAIC, kind of a joint national regulatory entity.
And these were places. Okay, this is the one that set the limit for how much you could transfer. There's like ATMs that you can put money in and buy Bitcoins kind of thing. It limits how much you can do in any one day. Is it $30,000? Okay, and this is seen as consumer protection. Because Bitcoins are Bitcoins. And you could lose a lot of money in that. And Okay, money transfers are anybody like PayPal who takes your money and pays somebody with it, so.
That's right. So the money transmitters, it covers those payment, fintech companies, the PayPal companies. And it also covers the virtual kiosks that, where you can withdraw or invest in Bitcoin. But the intent of the Model Act is essentially to provide greater clarity, greater disclosure requirements, reporting requirements. Vermont has already been regulating in this area, so some of it's consistent with what Vermont is already doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Senator Collins.
Okay. And Maria, do you do the captive insurance bill as well?
I do.
Okay. So that, and there's more wasn't there some updating language in the DFR bill?
To the insurance, captive.
To the insured, I know in the captives, there's updating so that the term means the same thing this year that it meant when you did it first 20 years ago, that there was some aligning of terms to make sure that whenever they were used, they meant the same thing. Is that what I remember from captives?
There are some housekeeping
Yeah.
technical cleanup provisions in
Yes.
the captives bill. And including for consistency of terminology. I'm not remembering off the top of my head which exactly that might
I
be.
don't remember which exactly, I just remember that when we said it in this, we want to make sure that it means the same thing in all the statutes. Because it's been evolved, right? Okay. 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 Any questions for Maria? Okay. So. That is the DFR, there's some housekeeping and there's these. 1, 2, 3. Model laws, right? Holding companies. Money transfers. And pet insurance. Okay, and the holding company and. The money transfers are. The holding company I know is, depending on accreditation, is the money transfer, no.
That is
Just introduce yourself for the record.
Sure, Aaron Ferris, Deputy Commissioner of Banking Division.
Okay,
So the Banking Division is accredited by a number of different agencies. We're not currently accredited for our money transmission statutes. This would be a requirement if we were to go that far. And that accreditation is actually really new in this space. I think it's less than 5 years old nationally anyway.
okay. So banking division wants to be accredited.
Yes, if we were able to pass this law, we would definitely be able to move towards that correct.
Okay. Okay, that helps. Any questions, committee? Yes?
No.
No. See, that's what I'm gonna tell you. These may be eye-crossing bills, but I'm gonna get rid of 2 of them at once, so stay with me. Okay. Sandy, do you want to walk us through the captive or sections? And as the person whom I am sure is going to be presenting this bill, if you could just, if somebody could provide a quick outline, because I know there's a lot of housekeeping really in here, that I remember, so. Can
Yes,
you walk through that?
sure, Madam Chair, thank you. You want me to walk through the sections of H659 to refresh your memories?
Just by 659. is the captive insurance bill, yes, and DFR does not have a bill number because of timing issues. Okay,
Got it. Okay. Yeah, so there's some main sections, you know, mostly housekeeping within the captive bill. We're updating some relevant references and definitions involving unaffiliated transactions. I think that may be what you're referring to kind of make the language consistent within the sponsored captive statute. And this is in section 1.
can you send me this at some point?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so in section 1, it's really kind of making sure that we're being as explicit as possible on what we approve for unaffiliated parties and having that controlled unaffiliated business like we allow from section 6001. So we're pulling in a definition that's consistent with 6001 into the sponsored captive statute, which is in section 6032. And this is all meant to provide more consistency and greater clarity so that we're making sure we're approving what we need to and not having to constantly explain how those sections kind of interact with each other, if that makes sense.
And the unaffiliated groups are groups that are not part of the forming group of the captive. And I'm trying to remember the description we were given, but that they have some relationship to it, and so they can house that part of their business within the little captive apartment building.
Yep,
Okay.
it can be a contractual relationship, maybe an exclusive vendor relationship, but there has to be some sort of control over the unaffiliated business. And so those are some of the things that we have defined already for all the other types of captives. And this would pull it into the sponsored captive statute.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so, and then section 2 involves conversions of captive insurance companies into protected cells. This is an important update, I think, again, just a housekeeping item to provide the pathway and the clarity for, say, a single parent captive to convert into a protected cell of a sponsored captive. You know, we have in the statute that a protected cell can go off on its own into a group captive or a single parent captive, and but we don't have something that explicitly allows the other way around. So this in section 2 in 6034H adds the new language for conversions of captive insurance companies into
If a captive
protected
insurance,
cells.
if a captive insurance wants to become a protective cell, this sets out the process. And how's that? I'm reading my notes here. Okay,
Yep, it improves, it will, you know, be explicit in the law and improve the process.
Okay,
And provide
we already allow-
consistency.
protected cells. I hope somebody can give me a definition, can convert to a captive. And this allows it to go the other way for a captive to become a protected cell. And a protected cell is? What,
A protected cell is the sort of the units within a condo, right? That we like to say what in sponsored captives, you've got the facility and you rent out the license, and you have protected cells, either incorporated or unincorporated. And they're like mini captives within themselves. And they're contracting and renting out the cells within the sponsored captive license.
Okay, I thought I understood this, but that's right. So they are apartment buildings within the condo that are being rented out and are in some way protected. Okay,
Yep, and we often think of them as, incubators of for companies that or organizations that want to then, kind of understand how the captive operations work within the cell, and they have gone and converted to their own single parent captives, but we don't have something that explains how a single parent captive might want to convert into a protected cell within a sponsored captive.
okay. Committee questions? Uh-huh.
Good.
Okay, I think that takes us to section 3.
Yep. Section 3 is in regards to parametric contracts. And if you remember, we added a few years ago the allowance of captive insurance companies to enter into parametric contracts. And we, this was a relatively new concept, I think, back then. And there are specific federal and state laws, and federal laws in particular define them as security swaps or derivatives. And it has the accounting of that has a balance sheet effect. And we went a little too far in the definition within, the statute to say that parametric contracts are not insurance contracts. And since then, we know of insurance contracts that have parametric triggers, and for all intents and purposes, they are insurance contracts or reinsurance contracts, and they are accounted for as insurance and not as derivatives or swaps. And so we want to appease any confusion by amending the language to strike the language that says they are not insurance contracts, so that we can allow any parametric contract to be either a derivative or a swap or an insurance or reinsurance contract.
Not an insurance contract. I've got a note that says that it may allow some proof of damage. When we
Yep.
did parametric, it was if there was an earthquake within 10 miles of your facility, you got paid whether or not you were damaged. This says that these contracts may allow for proof of damage, that your Ferris wheel fell down, not just that the ground shook. Okay,
Yep, and the payout is, similar to a typical parametric contract, but the difference is, how it's accounted for, and the insurance or reinsurance contracts require proof of loss, and the payout is based on the parameters set for, how close an organization is to the center of the earthquake, say. And so this does give us the authority, and how we would regulate that is to review the contracts before approving a captive to enter into them, so that we know how they're going to be accounted for.
okay. I'm moving on, being no questions, to minimal capital surplus. And you're lowering the amount, agency captive insurance company not less than it was 500,000, you're taking it down to 250,000. And that's because experience says the 500 is too much.
Yep, and just for a little background, our minimums are minimums for solvency measure. Oftentimes all of the time, I should say, the commissioner has the authority to prescribe additional capital and surplus. And our programs are designed to have a level of capital that is commensurate with the risk placed into any type of captive insurance company. And so most of the time, your capital is well above the minimum qualifying capital for solvency.
So the commissioner can can require more.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions? Okay. Senator Bray,
Great.
just while you are looking at me, I think you have a question.
Sorry, I'm just, for checking in, being present.
Okay, you're present. All right, we're on to section 5.
Yep. Section 5 is a correction to section 6017A1 in our statute. This is related to reinsurer fees and strikes language for that. And, you know, this was something that, you know, we no longer collect for many, many years and just never changed the statute. And so there's no, you know, there's no impact really to our revenue because at the time that we stopped collecting those fees, we had increased other fees and
Okay, I'm looking at section 5, which is captive insurance regulatory and supervision fund.
mhm,
And it transfer of 11, and it's going to 13% of the premium tax of this title, all fees and assessments to the department. You haven't been. Okay,
yes,
you
so
haven't been collecting those fees?
yes, so there's a couple areas for correction here. Last session, legislative session, we had increased the share of premium taxes transferred to DFR
Yes,
within 6014 from 11% to 13%. But in 6017, there's also a reference to that percentage, which didn't get changed. And so that's what
Okay.
we are,
so that's,
yeah,
this is just bringing that up, okay.
and then while we were looking, we noted that there was also language to strike related to reinsurer fees that we no longer collect. So that's, again, a correction and a little bit of housekeeping.
That helps. Okay, so we're down to section 6, reinsurance.
Yep, section 6 relates to reinsurance for captive insurance companies. And in section 6011 of the statute, there's language there that we're proposing to strike that relates to the allowance of reinsurance to non-US owned captive insurance companies affiliated with ownership of Vermont captive insurance companies without the commissioner's prior approval. It's quite confusing language, and it really has no bearing on our authority to allow reinsurance, and it just seems to be some very old and outdated language. It's somewhat, I would say, inconsequential. I think there was a term I used in my memo to you about our regulatory standard. And, you know, since the original statute in 6011B and that language, we have implemented reinsurance guidelines for risk retention groups in our regulation. And we are definitely, you know, not looking to this era of the statute for when we approve reinsurance arrangements with companies within the US or outside of the US. So it's quite irrelevant language and obsolete.
Okay,
So we'd like to clean that up.
okay, my notes say that brings it into line with current practice. You approve everyone, no matter if they're alien, foreign, or Vermont.
That's
Okay,
right.
and then section 7 through 18 are all have to do with confidentiality.
Yes. This is, to me, this is a very important update. It modernizes and streamlines our confidentiality provisions and directs all of the sections within the captive statutes, the various sections of the captive statutes, you know, that we've changed and amended over the course of 40 years or more, back to a couple main sections within 602, 608, or 605 too. So these proposals really do streamline and I think makes it much easier for folks within DFR and outside of DFR and all the stakeholders to follow along with the confidentiality statutes. And my hope is that with this change, we may never have to touch it again.
Okay, so this just updates all the confidentiality references in the statute so that they're consistent and they meet modern standards.
Yes. And then they're consistent with the Public Information Act and section
With all federal.
section 22.
Okay. I think that's it. We just did the bulk of this bill in one thing. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
And DFR, are you prepared to? Trying to find out if I have a copy. No, I don't. We've been through, we've got the pet, the holding, and a couple of housekeeping bills, updates. And we've been through that. Okay, anybody need to hear more on this, on any of them? Okay, I'm gonna put this on for a vote tomorrow. And I hope I can. I'm gonna find a copy, I'm sure it's on the website of the DFR things, just because I've been told since there were no volunteers, that I'm gonna report this. Unless you want to volunteer, I didn't think so, I tried.
So I did just forward a section by section memo on active sections that Deputy Commissioner Bigglestone had put together. We've also provided one that is on the committee page right now.
Okay,
That
good, I
outlines
just haven't got to that today.
the money transmission changes
Okay.
in detail. We haven't yet provided like section by section summaries of the holding company model or the pet model, but we can do that for.
That might be how pet insurance is the one thing I'm probably gonna get questions.
Yeah,
Everybody can identify with it.
we did submit,
Captive insurance, there will be no questions.
we did submit a one-page summary of the pet model
Okay.
that's on your
That's all,
webpage today.
so I'll just get those all.
Which is high level and gives sort of the key provisions, and if you'd like more detail, we're happy to break that down too.
I think that's,
Is it all pets?
Yes.
So like anything that's called a pet?
Well, it's up to the insurance company, so
Okay, they
if an insurance company doesn't wanna write a guinea pig policy for guinea, they can decide that, but it covers any pets that an insurance.
so you
company
don't
wants
have to cover boa constrictors or other reptiles,
Correct.
you don't,
Exactly.
okay,
Yep.
all right. What did we find out? We had the water buffaloes are gone,
Water buffaloes are gone. We have one camel left.
one camp, so that might be an exclusive,
Farm animal.
exclusive insurance
Oh, so
product.
you know what this kid.
Camel and Ferrisburg.
The camel Ferrisburg died,
Yeah.
but Mike said there's one more,
Everything.
but one more lives on in the house in a row.
Okay, I think we will put that on for vote tomorrow.
Christmas pageant.
And committee, that is it on my agenda for today. And anybody else in the room? Jamie, do you have anything to add? Okay, then we are done. I am adjourning.